Mr. Tenaglia, how much on average does the military spend on Viagra each year?
I don't have that figure, ma'am.
About $41.6 million. Do you know how many bridges in my district of Pittsburgh could be repaired with that amount? About 2. The rebuilding of the Fern Hollow Bridge, which of course collapsed the day that President Biden happened to be coming to Pittsburgh, cost about $25.3 million to rebuild. Mr. Tenaglia, how much did the Department of Defense spend on snow crab and Alaska king crab in 2018?
I do not have that amount.
According to Open the Books, it was $2.3 million. Do you know how much the Pittsburgh City Council spends each year serving the county's unhoused population? Only $1.2 million, but they're certainly not being served Alaska king crabs. I want to thank the joint subcommittees for holding this hearing on the financial mismanagement of the Department of Defense. I think this is one of the few areas where I can agree with my Republican colleagues on the need and nature of this oversight. When we dedicate so many of our resources to our military while we nickel and dime our other programs, the least we are owed is transparency and accountability. When our country spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined, we rightfully have high expectations for how that department functions. Yet, year after year, we shovel billions their way, 15% of our total budget. We continue to be disappointed, and the American people are let down. Mr. Tenaglia, how much did the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act authorize for shipbuilding?
I do not have that particular figure.
Yeah.
The total amount of contract obligations in 2022 was over $400 billion.
For shipbuilding, it authorized $32.6 billion. Do you know how many school lunches that amount could provide to hungry children in America, where for the 1 in 8 children who go to school hungry, that may be the only meal they get? All of them, and then some. The school lunch program cost $28.7 billion in 2022. According to an investigation by this committee in 2016, the F-35 program specifically raked up hundreds of millions of dollars in added costs due to mismanagement and negatively affected military readiness. Mr. Tenaglia, how much is the F-35 joint program estimated to cost the federal government to produce, operate, and sustain over its lifetime?
I believe the GAO cited that figure. I don't have it in front of me, but we can get that for you.
It's about $1.7 trillion, enough to completely eradicate student loan debt. According to the Government Accountability Office, between May 2018 and October 2022, about 1 million F-35 spare parts worth $85 million were, quote, lost, just vanished. Losing millions of dollars in assets is unacceptable. DoD themselves do not oversee or account for certain F-35 spare parts. Only the prime contractors maintains this information. Mr. Khan, how does this lack of access to contractor information hinder accountability and DoD's ability to provide accurate reporting in its audit?
It severely impacts DoD's ability to be able to provide accountability over those assets.
Mr. Tenaglia, going forward, what steps can your office take to improve contract requirements on the front end to enable better oversight during the life of the contract?
So we're taking those actions now, improving the clauses, the terms and conditions that go into contracts that communicate to contractors what the requirements are for property management, and the government furnished property module that I described. It's the means by which contractors can communicate how they are dispositioning property, how they're receiving property, and where we know where that property is throughout its life.
Okay. Thank you. In 2019, this committee led a bipartisan hearing to hold military contractors TransDigm accountable for its exorbitant profits on DoD contracts for spare parts. This pressure led to TransDigm repaying DoD $16.1 million. Last Congress, this committee held a second hearing, again on the excess profits that TransDigm received. I'll note that my Republican colleagues did not join our call for TransDigm to repay its excess profits, even though TransDigm has a track record of fleecing American taxpayers. TransDigm likes to acquire companies with sole source DoD contracts and then exploit its monopoly position by hiking up prices on crucial spare parts. Mr. Tenaglia, what policy changes is DoD considering to prevent price gouging on sole source contracts, and are there specific legislative reforms that would assist this effort?
So as I indicated in my written statement, Section 803 of the FY23 NDAA helps us in that regard. It will require contractors to provide the transparent cost and pricing data that we need In the case of commercial items, likely that will be uncertified information, but by the same token, our contracting officers need access to that information in order to establish fair and reasonable price.
Thank you. It's my time, but I want to say I urge the department to do better. Your department accounts for 15% of the total budget. You need to be more mindful in not only how you spend America's tax dollars, but also how you account for it. Millions of dollars should not just be lost, and failing audits should not be the norm. That is unacceptable. I yield back.